That's my
I'm not
guess.
sure I've ever.
Or Kellison's on a trainer if he's on.
It's like soft pedaling at 20 watts.
Nice. Okay, guys, we're recording, so we're going to kind of cut to it. Thanks for coming. If you get here late, you can watch the beginning of it later. And with the short introduction, I'm just going to let them speak for themselves because they're club members and excitingly doing this for us. And I'm super happy for Leah and Lanier to be here. A couple of stories will float in, I'm sure. And we were talking, you guys might have heard before I hit record, just, background stuff and amazing stories and challenges of being a bike rider, one of which, of course, aerodynamics, which is our topic. But thanks again to you guys for coming out, and I'm going to let you talk instead of me.
Okay, you have to tell stories.
I'll tell stories, you tell information.
Okay. I'm Lanier, this is Leah, in case you were wondering. I guess we decided at the beginning, if people want to ask questions in the middle, feel free to jump in, okay? So we're going to talk about time trialing. First, I don't know how many of you know Leah, but she's one of the most accomplished cyclists, certainly in the area or in the US. She was the 2022 US national champion, the pro national champion, at which time she actually had her best time trial ever in that race. And she has the record on that course by about 30 seconds. That includes like Chloe Dygert's ridden that course maybe 4 or 5 times, something like that. So super fast that day. And she's done a lot of other things, and I'm gonna list some of them, but it's like doesn't even touch what she's accomplished. So she rode for UHC, Bigla, Movistar, and Trek in her career. You had like what, an 8-year career? Something like that.
Oh, okay.
She discovered she's one of these people who like hadn't really ridden a bike and then got on a bike in her 20s and figured out she was like super amazing at it. So it's kind of annoying. She was 5th at the World TT twice, 2018, 2022. She retired after 2022, so she's now retired. She was in the Olympics, 3rd at Strade Bianche, lots of other things. She's the highest ever American finisher at Paris-Roubaix. And super importantly, she's the beat the clock record holder.
It is one of my pride accomplishments, I have to say.
And then also Old Honda QOM 1503. So that's Leah. And then I'm substantially less accomplished. I've been in PV for a while. I'm Leah's husband and coach. And for me, like cycling and coaching and aero stuff is kind of a hobby. So that I put a fair amount of effort into. Okay. So we just picked out a few things. We wrote this kind of last minute to talk about. We wanted to talk a little bit about training, pacing, optimizing position equipment, and how to aero test. And I'll go through in detail like how to aero test exactly. And we've both done aero testing like hundreds of times, both in wind tunnels and not. And we can talk more about that when we get there. But I guess I would say some of this stuff you can incorporate right away, like really fast, and it will help. And then other stuff, to get really good at time trialing actually takes years, basically. Like you keep trying new positions and testing, and you just get slowly faster and faster and faster. And so, it's one of those things you can kind of get lost in and just devote way too much time to. And but it has a really big effect, because once you're good at it, then you can go into like pretty much any race, like a stage race or a TT, and do really well without even trying that hard, right? Like Leah, her second run on Beat the Clock that day, she soft pedaled it and got the second fastest time
I know.
ever. So, okay. Anything you want to say?
I think as we go through this this presentation, like a lot of what we're going to talk about are things that I actually did. Like, these are all things that really made a difference in my time trialing and made me more consistent and really gave me an advantage. It was something at the time that lots of people weren't doing. And so this stuff really worked for me, and I hope that there's things that you guys can incorporate that will work for you too.
Okay, cool. Okay, so training, we're not going to have like too much to say. This is like, I think a lot of people know the basics of training for TTs, but this is the summary. It's sort of ride your bike a lot, like, and we'll have a couple more words to say, but basically this is hard for amateur cyclists, but the more base you have, the better your threshold's going to be, the better you'll be at TTing. Do some longer intervals. There's not really a need for shorter ones. You know, ride your TT bike a lot, particularly right before races. Like when Nationals was coming up, you would ride your TT bike a lot for like at least a month before.
Yeah, about a month.
Yeah. And then practice your position a lot. You know, if you don't have a way of measuring your position, you don't really know what's faster and you don't know what to do. But once you can measure it on a regular basis, you'll learn how to hold it and learn what it feels like. And so you want to practice it, but not during your intervals. During your intervals, you focus on power. And then separately, you practice your position. Then for a race, you put those two together. Okay. So, kind of already said this, like the bigger the base, the better. So long rides help a lot with TTing, like, you know, 4 or 5 hour rides, building up that, if you know how to, I'm sure Matt's talked a lot about, I remember him talking a lot about CTL, build that CTL. Do you want to talk about the intervals you did?
Yeah, something Lanier had me do were these longer intervals, and they started off, you do it for 30 minutes, and then the next week you do 45 minutes, and then 60 minutes and 90 minutes. And they're at a pretty high power. You'd have to find a place that didn't have hills and didn't have breaks. So by the time I would get
Like
up,
didn't have downhills.
yeah, sorry, downhills and didn't have breaks.
Yeah.
Or yeah, so like I would go from here and go up Old La Honda and go all the way to Castle Rock, for example, for the 60 to 75 minute ones. But they really made a big difference at me being able to produce high power for an extended period of time in a time trial. Like Lanier said, you really don't need that sprint ability. Like you can accelerate out of corners and stuff, but being able to hold that high power for a long time is the most important thing.
Yeah, and we put a couple others there. You can do like 2x20s with 5 minutes rest at TT power. It's hard to find places to do. You can do that on a hill on your road bike, but on a TT bike, that's going to get you pretty far. There's not too many places where you don't have to stop or anything. So another one's like 2x2x8 with 4 minutes rest between reps and 8 minutes between sets at like 105% of TT power. And that's a good one to do on Kenyatta, say between Edgewood and 92. That's going to be about 8 minutes or so. And yeah, and those are good. If you can't do those, you're not going to be able to hold your TT power in a race. So that's a good.
So when you say 2x2x8s, you mean 2 reps of 2 minutes 8 times?
No, sorry. So do 2x8 twice.
Right. Yeah. So this is kind of the cellular protocol. And protocol is maybe the wrong word, but
yeah,
those VO2.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that protocol. Yes. It's from Seiler's article a while ago. Yes.
Yeah, just want to clarify for everyone because I'd go out and do 8 2-minute effort or way sooner.
Yeah. I probably should have written that differently. What I mean is do 2 8-minute intervals with 4 minutes rest, then wait 8 minutes and then do it again.
Yeah. It's way harder than the 2-minute way.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I have a question. At my age, I never have to do a time trial that lasts longer than about a half an hour anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to do a 90-minute interval since I'm never going to see a race that long? I'm never going to see a race that's an hour.
So, I mean, you don't have to, but like for me, when I did nationals, that was like a 33-minute race. And I did these 90, I guess I got up to like 80 minutes because then I ran out of road. But like they did make a difference, and it did make working at that level for that long doable, because I'm under my TT power for those 90 minutes. And so raising that TT power up cut the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's like, for an amateur racer,
Yeah.
it's a big commitment to do stuff like that. And those are hard mentally. But if you do them, it's gonna make your 30-minute time trial better. So
And maybe you don't get to 90 minutes, but you just, do a longer interval than you've done before, and you'll still see
Yeah.
improvement.
start at 30, go 45, go 60, go 75 to see what you can tolerate. Okay. Yeah, now just maybe in other words, it's not on here. There's not.
I have a question. Sorry, I was
Yeah,
just
go for it, Brian.
here. I'm done walking. I'm gonna get on the bike soon. Good seeing you guys. Good seeing everybody. Why not doing your position when you all the way back from like the first or second slide? When you're doing the interval, why not try to hold your position?
I think, I mean, you can answer too, but I think you should do a little bit of that right before a race, but basically just trying to build the engine without, like, it's
Okay.
really hard to hold your TT position and go 90% for 90 minutes. So
Yeah.
this is just building your engine and trying to make it easier mentally. So, but I do
Got it.
think those 2x8s in your TT position before a race, like you should definitely work to that. Yeah. Go.
And to clarify what Matt was saying, it's 2 by 8 minutes. Like you wrote 2
Yeah.
by 2 8 minute, the Seiler stuff, because I'm doing 4 by 8
Yeah.
with 2
Silent.
minutes rest.
You can do the 4x8 with 2 minutes rest too. That's fine too.
Yeah, but try not, if you can hold the position, try to, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not mandatory. It's more of like and I had another question on top of this. That one was what do you guys prefer to like focus on, like position, then breathing, or is it all kind of mixed together? Like trying to work on like, hey, I need to focus on my breathing to get enough oxygen in, or hold a position regardless of effort.
If you are struggling to breathe in your position, you have to change your position.
Right, yeah.
Like the number one thing, and we'll talk about this more, is
Okay.
it doesn't matter how aero you are. If you can't hold that position and be comfortable in it, you're not going to hold it correctly in a race.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems with testing in a wind tunnel, is you're all anchored down and you think you can hold this position and it like slopes and it's weird. But like when you test on the road, you know instantly if you can work in this position or not. And that kind of goes back to the thing of doing your intervals. Like, yes, you're in your TT position, but you're focusing on your ability to produce power. And then when you're just riding your TT bike, you come up with kind of keywords that you think of to get your body in that right position. So you're kind of training those two things separately. And like Lanier said, it just takes a lot of mental energy. So when you're really focused on race day, it's easy to combine, but in training, it's a lot mentally less taxing to separate those two parts.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. In the lead up to a race, you also rode your TT bike a lot. Like in the month before nationals, you would ride it at least twice a week.
Mhm.
And like it helps to do some longer rides in there. Like maybe the 1.5 hour one has some intervals in it, and then you do like a 2.5 hour. The thing about doing a 2.5 hour ride on your TT bikes is it's going to be easily 50 miles or more. So it's it's hard to find places. I used to ride up Kenyatta over 92, down 1, and up over 84, and that was only like 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think it's like 52 miles or something. But it's a really good, if you can do that, you can hold your position on race day. And then separately, I think we answered this. Practice your position, and we'll show how to do that separately because testing's an integral part of that. So was there a question, Eugene? Or, no. Okay, I thought I heard a voice. Anything else? No. Okay. So we're going to talk about pacing, and we kind of broke this down into the 2 first ones are the most important. The second ones are just like add-ons. I think everybody's heard this. Don't go out too hard. If you go out too hard, you will screw yourself. If you go out a little less hard than you expect you can do, you can always get it back. If you go out a little too hard, you will blow up and it will be awful. And then want to say a couple words about pacing, which is basically you should go harder uphill and easier downhill. And I'm going to put some numbers on that. And we used to analyze every course like really, really in detail. So we'll show how to do that. So everybody knows this kind of, but the watt, we'll just remind people, the watts to overcome aero is a function of the cube of your speed. So at 30 miles per hour, it takes 8 times as many watts to go 1 mile per hour faster as it does at 15 miles per hour. So basically, if you were to like at 30 miles per hour, adding additional watts is not worth very much. And at 15, it's worth a lot. So what you want to do, you go harder uphill, easier downhill. I'll put some numbers on that in a second. You can even break position uphill if you're going slow enough, like below, say, 16 miles an hour, you could even stand up. And downhill, you want to get aero. At 30 miles per hour, instead of putting down more power, or 35 or 40, you want to get a little bit more aero. That's going to save you a ton more. So, so you concentrate on different things at different points in the course, basically. Downhill, you practice like getting aero. Uphill, you break aero a little bit, and you generate power. So, and the one thing you have to be careful about, you can't, if you vary your effort, like in a hilly course, you cannot do the same average power. You can't, like if you were going to do 250 watts or 300 watts or whatever, you cannot hold the same average power if you do like some of the time way over and some of the time way under. You have to drop it a bit. And you can use normalized power as a guide. So, do you want to say anything yet? Okay. So here's a rule of thumb that we use in general, but we actually analyze each course more carefully than this. So if there's no head or tailwind, you can set a target speed, say like 25 miles per hour, set a target wattage, say 250 watts. And then for each 1 mile per hour faster than your target speed, you drop power by 5 watts. So at 26 miles per hour, you do 245. At 30 miles per hour, you do 225. And then vice versa, if you go 1 mile per hour slower, you add power by 5 watts. So at 24, you do 255. At 20, you do 275. You know, at 15, you're going to do 300. So you're going way over if you're going really slow, which is up a hill, steep hill. This is kind of a rule of thumb. It hits the optimal speed targets almost exactly. And it's actually really hard to hit actual watts anyway. So
I think like knowing this rule of thumb is also just really beneficial. Like when you do a pacing worksheet, some of them can be really simple, but often they're kind of complex. And I was always paranoid of not remembering what was going to happen. And so just having this in my back pocket of knowing like, okay, I know I'm going this fast, my power should be about X, was just really helpful. So something to keep in mind.
So we use these pacing worksheets, and I can actually give people a copy of these if they want. You have to change it for the course. So I'm going to show you the super simplest one, which is a super simple of beat the clock. It doesn't even put in all the hills. All it does is put in the out and the back separately. And on the way out, and it adjusts a little bit because it's not quite accurate, but it gets the time almost exactly right. So what this is you put in your weight, and I put a threshold power of 300. Your target normalized power here, I was targeting, I guess, like 280 or something. And what this does is it's also the optimal wattage on the way out and the way back. Okay. And it just takes into account the fact that beat the clock is mostly downhill on the way out and mostly uphill on the way back. Even though there are hills along the way, there's the Water Temple Hill, which is uphill on the way out and downhill on the way back. And if you look here, when you can use the solver in Excel to solve, and then I put in like air density and stuff, but you use the solver in Excel to solve for the optimal pacing, given that you're holding a certain normalized power. And I think this would surprise people, but if you want to average 280, you should do 264 on the way out and 295 on the way back. Okay. So basically the way out, like if you're planning on averaging 280, 264 is feeling easy, right? So the whole way out, you're basically, except for that part of the Water Temple Hill, you're kind of taking it easy. And then the whole way back, you're going to go much harder. And this shows you the time it'd be like if your CDA is 207. I don't know why I put that there, but this would be a time of 22:45. And I bet you're surprised to see that fast a time. But adjusting your pacing like this makes a pretty big difference, actually. So And you can see this shows the marginal watt and marginal pound. So if you were to go 1 watt faster, you'd save 2 seconds. And if you were 1 pound lighter, you'd save 0.7 seconds. So kind of tells you stuff like that. We also have more complicated ones. Like, so for Leah's in the world's TT course in 2022, which was one of your last races, if not your last race.
Yeah.
This is in Wollongong, Australia. You can see that we broke the course. It was fairly technical into a bunch more sections. So here we have, you know, start to the first left, and each one is, so this section is, how long is it? It's
43 seconds.
yeah, 43 seconds long. The length was 0.57 kilometers, right? Small hill 1, downhill 1, small hill 2, gentle downhill through the right, second left. And she'd pre-written the course like, I don't know how many times. So
Yeah,
you memorized all this stuff, right? And then this tells her exactly how much power in each section. So she's aiming for a normalized power of 285. And, you know, the power you can see on each one ranges from, I guess the highest one was 350 up a steep hill, and then the lowest ones are like 210. So
Yeah, and like I also think if you're using worksheets like this, you really have to figure out what works for you. So for me, when I was pre-writing the course or just visualizing the course, it was really helpful to go through each of these sections and know what power I was at. But when I was racing, I actually didn't look at my power meter that much. I use it really strictly for like the first 5 minutes of a race, so I don't do the go out too hard thing, which I used to do a lot. But the rest of the time, I really am able to feel in my body how things are going, and it actually lines up pretty well for me. But somebody like Lanier stares religiously, like just stares at his power meter the whole time and like really relies on that. So like you kind of have to figure out what works for you. And that's kind of why I mentioned, for me, just knowing that rule of thumb helps me with my pacing. But this kind of spreadsheet helps me prepare more than what I actually do on race day. So.
yeah. Also, I just want to point out the average power on this, I don't know what her actual was, I can't remember, but is 275, but the normalized is 285. That's because it's so variable. There's all these little hills. Brian?
Leah, when you're feeling it in a race,
Yeah.
what are you using to judge your effort? If you're not looking at it, because I don't look at numbers, because not that I'm not supposed to look at numbers. I just can't get my computer to a spot in where my
Where you
hands
can
are.
see it.
I see it, so I just ride, and I can hold my position looking straight ahead to be safe.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like good cadence. What are you feeling?
For me, it's I better not be feeling at all tired in the first X length of the race.
Right. I've gone out too hot, so I'm working on the pacing.
Yeah.
I went out slow in districts to then pace properly to finish really strong.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's the best thing to actually do is choose a time trial that's not super important to you and really make yourself go out easy. Like that's what I did on that beat the clock where my fastest time was, I was really struggling with going out too hard. And so I just made sure like, no matter what I'm going out, I'm not going above whatever my power was that day. I forget what we set it at. And then it really cemented for me, like I had a lot left in the tank to really rail it on the way back, and it really set a fast time. So I think you need to, like, if you struggle with that, give yourself the opportunity and choose a race that really doesn't matter to you and test it and see how you feel. And I think you'll be a convert at the end.
Yeah. And every race is different, right? Like that Cull Canyon time trial is all uphill to start with. So you just want to kill it.
Yeah.
You know, basically puke at the turnaround.
True.
and then like just doesn't matter what happens on the way back, you know. so every race is different. Okay. So I think that's all we had to say on pacing. There's a couple other things. People tend to worry about the wind. The wind, it turns out, has two effects which exactly offset, basically. So you don't change your pacing in the wind. If you're on a flat time trial and it's a headwind on the way out and a tailwind on the way back, do exactly the same wattage both ways. Don't adjust your wattage. And then I guess some other things. there's this thing about not wasting energy that people don't, maybe it's not so intuitive. Anytime you're going slow, you want to go hard. So when you start, you want to quickly get up to speed, like a 3/4 sprint up to around 20 miles per hour. Then you get in position. And then after that, don't go out too hard. At the finish, you don't, like in a road race, you sprint all out and you're almost at like peak speed right at the finish line, right? But in a time trial, that's a waste because you have all this power saved up as kinetic energy. Your body's moving, your bike's moving really fast at the finish, and that's a waste. What you actually want to do is sprint well before the finish and die, and like almost die coasting into the finish line. So you're coming back down to speed. Then you've really emptied your tank and gotten the fastest time you can get. That's kind of counterintuitive. The other thing, you don't want to go hard into a turn because that's wasted. You use the brakes and you're going to just throw all that energy away. So you kind of coast for a long time into a turn or into a U-turn and then sprint out. So save your energy coasting. It won't cost you that much time going in, and it's wasting the energy otherwise. So and then you sprint, take the saved energy and sprint your way out of it. Anything else? No. And you can, practice that. So, okay.
The sprinting well before the finish is really mentally hard. So it's something like choose the point before you race of when you're going to start sprinting and hold yourself to that point.
If you can, like you want to sprint 30 seconds to a minute before the finish. If you die over the finish line or before you get to the finish line, that's okay.
Yeah,
Brian, go for it.
Sprinting as in stay in the saddle, but go as hard as you can so you know there's nothing left.
Yeah,
because I never really get out of the saddle. I just push all the way through.
Like if you have the energy to stand and sprint, then you can go for it. That means you've left probably too much out there. But otherwise, it depends. Like if it's an uphill finish, definitely stand up and sprint. If it's a downhill, you want to definitely stay seated. So depends on the race, on the course.
Yeah, but you're just pushing as much power as you can, but well before the finish line.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about optimizing position and equipment, and then we'll say we'll teach people how to test. So rule of thumb, just quickly so people know, 10 watts is worth roughly 1 second per kilometer. It's a little less than that. It's like 9 watts is 1 second per kilometer. So what that means is if you save 10 watts in Aero, you're going to go 1 second per kilometer faster. So if it's a 20-kilometer race, you go 20 seconds faster. If it's a 40-kilometer race, you go 40 seconds. That's how that works. So we're going to talk about low-hanging fruit, which is stuff that's cheap and easy. Talk about the trade-off between power and Aero. And then just, do you have anything to say? No. Okay. Okay. Do you want to do this or do you want me to?
You can do it.
Okay, so lowest hanging fruit is tires. They're not even like expensive or anything, and they make a pretty big difference.
What tires the best?
And we'll talk about tires, which ones are the best in a second. Tubes, latex saves out 4 watts per wheel, which is huge, right? That's 1 second per kilometer.
You should share my.
Yeah, Leah, when she got 5th in the 2018 World Championship time trial, the USA Cycling mechanic, we gave him latex tubes to put in, brand new ones, and he messed up. And he didn't, rather than admit he messed up, he just stuck a butyl tube in her rear tire. She was 7 seconds off of third. Podium. And if that latex tube had been in there, she would have had third.
Yep.
And it is just ridiculous that stuff like that happens. People don't realize how important it is, but it's super important.
Yeah.
So
tires and tubes are just so easy.
Yeah.
Totally worth it.
Question about that. Some people are using tubeless now. What's your opinion on that?
Tubeless is basically as good as latex. It's a bigger hassle to deal with, but it's like maybe 1 watt slower than latex. It's not much different. So tubeless is great too. If you don't mind, I can't stand dealing with all of the the sealant and putting because then it dries out and I don't know. Anyway, so
no, I've been using road tubeless since the very early days of it, so I'm kind of used to it. But
okay, yeah, tubeless is good.
I don't want to deal with
switching
Alien.
my time trial equipment this year, so I'm just figuring out what to get.
It's like the Android and Alien, all the goo coming out of him.
Totally,
don't want to deal with it.
If you're willing to put up with it, tubeless is fine. Shaved legs make a huge difference. surprisingly. And if you don't, you can also use Aero socks, and Leah likes to make fun of me, so go ahead.
I don't know, is it still a UCI rule?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're only supposed to wear your socks like halfway up your calf, and they used to like actually measure it for us. Like they would have this little thing. And Lanier liked to do his time trial with these like knee height Aero socks. So I'd always accuse him of sock doping because they weren't legal, but Aero socks do make a big difference. And technically they're only supposed to go halfway up your butt.
And the
your
UCI
calf,
stopped measuring, so all the pros do it too. So
but not to your knee.
anyway, for me in testing, they make a big difference. So I like them, and they're cheap. On the less cheap side, whatever skin suit you have, if you stick this no pins hypersonic base layer underneath it, it'll make it a lot faster. That's like state of the art, basically. So just mention that. It's expensive though. It used to be, before everybody realized how good it was only like half that price. So, but they've jacked up the price, and now it's ridiculous.
Have you tested the various different ones? Because I have the Hoob one.
I'm sure that one's good too. I don't know that. I haven't tested that one. Yeah. Basically what happened, I don't want to waste time on it, but Velotech developed a suit that had the base layer built in, and it was super fast.
Mhm.
And then some other suit makers like Santini copied
Which is
it,
what I wrote, yeah.
which is what Leah wrote. And then Velotech sued them for patent infringement. And so they all stopped making the dual layer thing and started making base layers. And so, yeah, I'm sure that one's good too, the Hoob one. So, but if you get the base layer with the big ridges in it, that's not illegal. Because if you put the big ridges on the outside of the suit, it's illegal. But if it's in the base layer, it's legal, and it's super fast. So
Wait, Eugene, how have you found the Hoob one for like ventilation? Because I know that one's long sleeve versus the short sleeve other ones.
Well, I mean, it's been cold at the races, so
Oh,
it
that's
hasn't
true.
been an
You're
issue.
right.
yeah.
Have you worn it in the heat at all?
No,
Okay.
but there's a short sleeve version, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
get the short sleeve version.
How much is that one, Eugene?
I think it's a little bit cheaper,
Okay.
like 150.
I can't believe they charge that much for a base layer.
I'm looking up the short sleeve right now. It's 140 pounds.
Which is
Okay,
$180. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay. There's exactly the same price, I guess. If you don't have a helmet, the Giron Specialized ones work well for almost everybody. So, okay. These are the tires. I like to use the Aero Coach because I get the same numbers when I test myself, pretty much. You can see there's really big differences across tires still, right? Like if you're to use a GP5000, this is on a track, these numbers. So that's 28 watts versus a course of speed is 20, but you have to multiply that by about 1.6. So the difference there is 8 watts times 1.6, 12 watts. That's like, a bit more than a second per kilometer is a lot. And that's totally free. They cost the same amount. I mean, just use the fastest tires. The latest Corsa Pro Speeds, which just came out, are a tiny bit faster than the old Corsa Speeds. The Veloflex record is super fragile.
Yeah.
So you can use that if you want, but it's a little
Might
more
not
risky.
be, yeah.
You might
worth
not
the
make it to
risk.
the finish line. Brian?
So just to clarify, because it's not on the slide, shorter bar is better.
Yes,
Yes.
That's what I was making sure, because it's not,
Yes.
usually I look for that footnote that
So
like GPU speeds,
yes.
Yeah.
shorter
faster,
bars.
more lines is better. So, okay, shorter.
Yeah.
Got it.
I asked Xavier today actually that about the Corsa Pro Speed. Because the old version was less aero than the GP5K, so you would lose
Yeah.
1.5 watts at 45k an hour with the Corsa speeds just from aerodynamic losses. The new ones are more aero, he says. So you would
Okay.
just use the Corsa Pro Speeds.
Yeah.
For standard road racing, is the Corsa Pro Speed puncture resistant enough, like for just a standard NorCal?
I don't think
race?
anybody really knows. I use the GP5K time trial tires, and those have held up.
Yeah, they should have the same theoretical puncture resistance from the like puncture resistant layer, but they just have less total rubber on the outside of them than the
Yeah.
standard
Yeah.
GP5000s.
That does make a difference, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody really knows for sure. All I can tell you is I've had really good luck with the Corsa speeds. I take my old TT tires and I ride them as training tires on my front wheel.
Yeah.
And I've had like almost no flats. Actually, I have a great story. I had GP 5000s in the last Chico stage race, which was a bunch of years ago now, because obviously it hasn't been run. And I flatted in the gravel, and my backup tire was a training wheel that had a Corsa speed on it. And I put it on and rode through the gravel 2 more times without flatting on a Corsa speed. So they're not that bad. Anyway.
I did San Ardo on Corsa speeds, and
Mhm.
there's like goat heads at San Ardo.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine.
I think one other thing that you kind of touched on but didn't actually touch on is like use a fresh time trial tire
Yes.
when you're racing. And then just recycle them and use
Yeah.
them some other way, but make sure that you have a brand new one or basically brand new one for a major race.
So I'm curious, these measure out of 25. Is 25 still the standard for TT speed? Mill?
So narrower is faster always in the front, and in the back it doesn't matter so much. But yeah, like oh, by the way, don't you take these grain of salt with the difference between, you know, like the 24 versus the 26, because basically when that's done at the same tire pressure. If you reduce the pressure in the 26, which you will, it's basically the same. So wouldn't worry about that.
And what about the for those old school people that ride
Yeah.
tubulars and the Corsa Speed? And I probably mounted it 2 years ago and haven't ridden it yet. Is that too old?
No, it's a great tire.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a super awesome tire. That would be right up here with the best.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, totally. It's got a latex tube inside it. It's really good.
Okay.
Probably less aero though,
Maybe. Yeah.
because it's got a much more circular profile on the front.
I think something else too is like to play with is figuring out which tire and which width matches whatever wheel you have. Like there's some interaction with like how fit it is. Like Eugene was saying, sometimes they bulge over the side or.
Yeah, the Zip guy did a deep dive on that for their wheels, that crossover.
Okay. Why don't you do this part?
Okay. I think the number one most important thing is you have to be comfortable on your TT bike. So we touched at this at the very beginning, but like if you find a position that's really fast and you had just been soft pedaling testing on Kenyatta, and then you go out and try to do an interval and you do 8 minutes and your legs feel like they're going to explode, you probably need a different position. I think something else too for people who are smaller is often your bike is too big or you're like too extended this way and you get blown around in the wind or on a downhill and you don't feel comfortable, and then you're not going to hold that position that's fast. So you need to feel comfortable in all kinds of ways in order to be able to optimize everything. Another important factor is making sure you're kind of closing the hole in the front, which is like your hands and your head. So I would always think about chin to hands, and I would extend my chin like this and reach towards this part of my hands.
I'm going to show a picture of Leah. Here's Leah.
So in my head, I'd be thinking chin to hands, and trying to have as small of a gap as possible in that section.
Okay.
Something else for me is, and you too, actually, is shorter cranks really made a huge difference for me in being able to maintain my position for a long period of time. I changed them when I moved to Trek in 2022, and it made it a lot. I went down to 165s, and I had no problem holding that position before I'd kind of rock around and get uncomfortable over a long length of time.
What were you using before?
170s. And then just there's small UCI rules, like your tips of your bars aren't supposed to be above your saddle height. There's like extension rules, like if your saddle's at 0, the tips of your bars can't go out 75 centimeters.
Depends on your height. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, you should just be cognizant of it in case they happen to test you, but that's probably not of a deal for you guys. And then the last thing is to make sure that your bike isn't too big. Like ideally, if you're choosing between sizes, you're going to choose a bike that's smaller because you can always throw a longer stem on there, or, you know, adjust it. And then there's certain bikes that are a lot more adjustable than others, and that adjustability really plays into the ability to test. So for me on the Trek, we could just go out on Kenyatta and bring an Allen key, adjust the extension length or the height really, really quickly, just on the side of the road, test it right there, make note of it, and kind of analyze it later. So
Her front end was prototype though. It wasn't the.
okay, but your bike is the same way.
Yeah.
So anyway, like just having, if you are choosing between two bikes and you happen to be in that position, choose the more adjustable one. Yeah, Brian.
Can you go a little bit more in depth on the crank length? What you discovered when you first switched to? Is it like getting over the top, or was it cadence?
For me, it was getting over the top.
She also had an injury.
Yeah, it also turned out
Oh,
I had,
injury,
like
okay.
a bone spur and like bad cartilage in my right hip, and I ended up having surgery when I retired from it. So for me, that was a factor personally, but I think lots of people struggle with that pinching over the top in general, and it kind of keeps your hips more open as you come over the top of the pedal stroke.
So is there a benefit for longer crank for just straight power and whatever?
No.
No.
Matt can back us up on this. There's
Only
tons of
for a
research on
standing
it.
start.
Yeah, like
Oh, just
Standing
getting that
start,
leverage at
that's it.
from a dead stop.
From a dead stop, there's the leverage will be better, but that's it.
so for like the
Standing start.
first 5 seconds,
Yeah,
which in a time trial doesn't matter.
because
But
I've actually experimented with 140 millimeter cranks. I actually I posted photos in the chat, but
I'm open to anything. I'm
It took-
on 175, but I'm a bigger guy, so I was always this is what came with the
What
bike.
did you use 160.
I use
So, I mean-
162.
You use 162.
Yeah.
So-
Okay.
so it took like 30 seconds to kind of get used to the 140s. I eventually went back to 165s just because like the quality of a SRAM crank is better than
Mhm.
whatever like off-brand crank I was using. But it was also like out of the saddle, it like really short cranks do feel kind of weird because necessarily you will increase your cadence just to
Okay.
get the same
140
like
is pretty short.
yeah,
Yeah.
extremely short. That's like
A lot of pedaling.
yeah. Well, your cadence will increase because like you will have like some like every individual will have like the preferred like force feedback in their legs, and in order to get that force feedback with the shorter cranks, you need to spin faster, basically. Spin faster in a lower gear ratio.
So more in-depth training or testing on my end.
Yeah, I
So
think
just to
I think it helps you get an like a really aero position and be able to generate power. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Like for a road
Oh,
bike, I
man.
don't think it matters so much, but
You know me, Lanier. I'm big dumb animal, lots of power, and just wasting watts. So I want to get that.
I suspect there's a
Oh,
lot.
there's tons.
There's a lot of low hanging fruit.
I can't
for you
believe I
even
win
without
sometimes,
the cranks.
even with how terrible I ride.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get better.
Okay, I guess the other thing we would say is you should think of testing as like an all the time thing. Like it's not once we show you how to do it, you can do it even on any training ride. And it's not like, you need the feedback that says, oh, if I hold my shoulders like this and push my chin to the floor, I go 10 watts faster, right? And you need that feedback constantly reminding you, okay, what is it that I have to do? It's like I have to hold my body in this specific way. And when you do that, you learn how to do it in a race, and you can hold it. And it's surprising, like it's a small change and it makes a big difference. So, but if you've never tested, you have no idea. So you just do whatever feels comfortable. And you might be throwing 10, 20 watts out without changing anything on your bike or any equipment. So.
Yeah, and I think if you don't test constantly, like, off season happened, or, there haven't been any time trials, so you haven't prioritized it. The first time you test, you get a really bad CDA.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, I really lost my position. And so part of that is, as you're testing, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but keeping really detailed notes of how you're holding your body, and really concentrating and coming up with those key phrases for you of how to hold your body, so that you can remind yourself and re-find that position. Because even if your bike hasn't changed, really your body is the biggest component of that, and you need to be holding it optimally. So.
Okay, so how do you test? People are going to have to refer back to this. It's not very hard once you learn it, but you probably have to refer back to this if you want to try it. Brian, pay close attention. Okay, you need a speed sensor on your bike, ideally a wheel magnet of some kind, or there's that one that Garmin puts on the front axle. That's fine too. Have your head unit set to manual, and the best practice is to measure the wheel circumference and put it in. But if you can't do that and you just can approximate it, get it close, that's fine. Don't set it to auto because it has to be fixed. You need a reliable dual-sided power meter. If your power meter is like one side, or that won't work. If it's like somehow making up the numbers, which some of them do. You need a way to measure air density, which you can use just the like an online service, and we'll show you that. But we have this, I don't know if people can see, we have a couple of these things, which are these Kestrel air density measure things. Brian?
I have everything on the list. I just need to know how to do it now.
Okay, cool. So you got to know your weight, including everything, like with the bike and your helmet and your skin suit and your shoes and everything. Okay, and if you have a water bottle, I don't ride with a water bottle when I time trial, but if you have that, you need to weigh that too. And a guesstimate of CRR, the coefficient of rolling resistance. I put them on that chart earlier, and you multiply it by 1.6 is a good starting point for your tires. Okay. You're going to test using your full race setup, including race wheels, tires, and tubes set to the race PSI, skin suit, helmet, shaved legs, whatever, and you're going to take notes on all of it. Write it down. So you know exactly what it is. This is like physics lab time, like back to high school physics lab. Everything has to be super careful. Okay, so here's the protocol. You get everything set up on your bike, everything together, get your kit, your helmet, everything, your Aero socks, set your tire PSI, start the head unit. You can warm up a little bit if need be, because sometimes it's hard to get in your position right away if you're not like kind of warmed up or stretched or whatever. Zero offset your power meter. Okay, you're only going to do this once before you start the whole round of testing. So on a cork, you can backpedal 5 times. In most power meters have a way of using the head unit where you hit like 0 or calibrate or something, and you're going to do that once before you start, and make sure like it gives a feedback on the number. Make sure it's not something wacky, so that in case something went wrong. So make sure this has to be done. If you haven't done this, you're going to get strange numbers out of your power meter. You're going to record test runs using an out and back course, a non-technical course. The start and finish points have to be on a flat piece of road, because if you mess up a little bit and it changes the height, that would screw everything up. So there has to be no up or downhill at the start or finish. There can be ups and downs in between, and works best with little to no cars or wind.
How long should the course be?
And the course should be at around 3 to 4 minutes each direction. So 1.5 miles. Okay. So like you're going to go 1.5 miles out and 1.5 miles back is a good length.
and no braking at the turnaround.
Okay, I'll tell you how to do yeah, you can brake at the turnaround because we're gonna cut the turnaround out. I'll show you how to do that
Okay.
in a second. Yeah. Okay, so for Kenyatta, you can do this anywhere. Brian, there must be a million spots in the Central Valley to do this. Probably really good ones. The course we use is between Edgemont and the Water Temple Hill. The start is the Bicycle Sunday sign, which is just so you go down the hill after Edgemont, it kind of flattens out and you hit the Bicycle Sunday sign. We use that as the start. The finish is a little white sign right before the Water Temple, the big part of the Water Temple Hill, and it's right before the driveway there. There's 2 of those signs in a row, so it's the second one. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit lap on your head unit when you first cross the Bike Sunday sign, and then again at the last sign. Then you're gonna turn around and hit lap twice again. Okay, so you record for each run. Ideally, you record air density each time. If it's like early morning or late evening, that's gonna matter because the temperature and the air density change over 20 minutes. But if it's midday, it won't matter. It basically stays constant. You can do it once for the whole thing. You ride toward the start line in your aero position. You hit the lap button as the start line's crossed. Hold position and ride the same exact line each time. So if you're riding like the white line, ride the white line every time. Find a line that works really well for you, that's safe. And hold your aero position exactly what you want. Like, so if you're testing, I'm going to try pushing my arms really far in front of me, just push them in front of you and hold it that way the whole time. Or if I'm pulling way forward, do that and hold the same way the whole time. Hit the lap button as you cross the finish line, turn around. You can then use your brakes, turn around safely, look for cars, etc., and repeat in reverse direction, hitting lap twice more. That's one run. Okay. Does everybody get that? Brian?
Regardless of power or speed.
Correct.
You can vary power and speed as you want. I do not
On out and back. You don't have to
Yes.
hold it.
Nope.
Just hold position.
Just hold position. I do not do race power. I tend to do a bit less than that because otherwise you're going to be exhausted before you end up testing very much, right?
You also probably don't want to do like 30 watts either,
Yeah.
but an easy pedal down is totally fine. You don't need to be producing lots of power, but when you're soft pedaling, it's hard to hold your position as well. So something in between those two.
Yeah, I do probably like 75%, something like that. 75, 80%. And that's easy for me to hold.
When I would test, like I would bring the little air density thing, this thing, and I'd bring my phone and I would just put it on the ledge, like the bank next to the sign. And after each run, I would write down what the air density was.
A photo, right?
Yeah, take a photo of it and then also write down what I was testing for that run. So I'm thinking chin to hands, I'm thinking hollowing my back, I'm thinking squeeze my shoulders, like whatever aspect I'm thinking, I'm writing it down so that once I've done 4 or 5 runs, I know what I was doing each run and can go back and analyze it appropriately.
Yeah. And this is super easy. Like you can do it. I do it on like a training ride on my road bike sometimes. I go out Kenyatta, I just do a couple tests and I keep going. Yeah, even on my road. Like I like testing my position on my road bike too. You'll be surprised. It makes the differences on a road bike are much bigger. Like I can get a difference of 50 to 100 watts just by changing the way I'm sitting on my road bike. So
I have a Kestrel. I finally got one because what you told me.
yeah.
You just need the air density. You don't care about wind. You don't care about
Just the air density.
Temperature.
just the air density,
and
and it doesn't matter.
Temperature.
And the temperature, actually.
And the
Yeah.
temperature, which should capture that, right? Or
Yes.
Yeah, it does. It has both. Yeah.
and then it doesn't matter if it's on the ground or high up or
Probably not on the ground because the ground can be different temperature, particularly if it's hot, like the sun is heating the ground. The ground might be like 30 degrees warmer, which will change the air density.
Like hang it from one of the little white
Yeah.
sign post.
well, I'm in farmland,
Or
so
like-
sometimes there's humidity, but like hang it from like a sun.
A
Get it in a place
tree
where
or
there's
a,
wind, there's air, so it's not like I'm in the humid part and I'm on the road, but
Yeah.
close enough to the road where it's simulating what is
Where you
close
are.
enough to the road.
Where you're riding. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Brian, I would find the nicest road possible.
Yeah, I have
You
one.
know,
I don't
you
know
don't
if it's,
want
I
to
don't
be
know if it's
on
one.
like a typical.
No.
Oh,
There's
my road.
there's 2 paved out here. One's like 1K, and then there's another one that's like 1.3
Yeah.
or 4K, and it's like freshly paved. It's like
Okay,
amazing.
that's good.
So, but I just
Sounds-
want to know, like, do I put it in the middle of the road? Do I put it at the beginning, or does it matter?
Like,
Well, you have to be able to get to it to look each lap, and it would suck to go all the way back halfway to go check your air density.
Yeah, just
So just
put it
put it at the
Do it at
beginning.
the, yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
That
put it
makes
at
sense.
one
Okay.
end.
Yeah.
But something else, like you really, as long as you're consistent, like with whatever number you're putting in, like your rolling resistance number or that
Okay.
kind of stuff, like it actually doesn't matter what it is, because it's just gonna, it might give you the wrong CDA, but you can compare them.
getting it exactly right means you can compare across days.
Yeah.
If you don't get it exactly right, only the tests within that day will be comparable. So
Okay. I mean, just need to do it all the time so I get
Yeah.
good at doing it,
Exactly.
whether I mess up at the beginning. So this is helping me finally do it.
yeah,
I've
you
done
do
a
it,
couple, but I've never really, like, I threw it into the cycling cheetah thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was just testing it out, but I just need to learn how to like set that up properly.
Right.
And like, because I don't mind testing, I just need to learn how to do it.
It's super easy. I do it all. Both of us have tested hundreds of times. This is Leah on Kenyatta. We used to go out there all the time. This is her position. She's actually,
So for this one, I was testing skin suits. If you can tell, I'm wearing a different skin suit on my track bike, and I didn't worry about socks because I was just comparing on that day different
Skin
skin
suits, yeah.
suits, and I wanted to know which one was fastest in case I needed to have one made. But
and we worked really hard, like in 2018 on Leah's position. And she's tested in a couple of wind tunnels in Europe, like the two biggest wind tunnels. One of them was Xavier is what he goes by. Yeah, Xavier Disley. And the other one was the tunnel in Switzerland, which is, yeah. And in both tunnels, she was the lowest lowest CDA of anyone they've ever tested. Like
And-
0.15-ish.
Wow.
And like what
Yeah.
they say, and then they would try to adjust something or change something, and you'd go back on the road and you'd have to put your position back to where it
Yeah.
was. So really the benefit to like taking the time to get good at this kind of testing, like it's not hard, but
Yeah.
you do get better through doing it more often, is you can hold that position when you're racing. So it really,
And you get feedback like every day or every week instead of just once. The wind tunnels are expensive and you go once a year. Go ahead, Brian.
A good rule of thumb is test one thing at a time.
Yes.
always, you can't tell what happened if you,
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
As I'll go out there like, oh, a helmet and this and
And write it all down too, because you'll find
Right.
yourself going in circles, and this is me testing the same things over and over again. Then Lanier gets mad at you because he's like, you already tested that.
yeah,
So-
I know.
Okay, I made an app which I think you should use instead of Golden Cheetah. Brian, it's way easier and it does the calculation.
I'm
differently.
happy.
So
I'm already ready to do it.
So you go to this that link that's listed there, and this is what you see. All right. And you just, I guess I already have the fit file in there, but let me take it out. And so all you do is you drag and drop the fit file. So you take your file from your head unit. This is one I did literally the day before the Athlone time trial. And I wanted to check like a skin suit against each other. And there's a lot of laps in here because I did a bunch of things, but I'll show you. I keep a worksheet that tracks all the tests I've done. I have one of these for tons of different people, including Leah. Brian, I might even have one for you. This test is,
I have another question while you're looking for something.
Yeah.
yeah.
When you're testing, what's a good screen to have on to help remember or to help document what your lap is when you do get the fit file in? Like sometimes I'll lose track of which lap is which test.
Well, you should be able to tell when Lanier goes back to the other screen, like lap 1 will be like 1.5 miles or 3 minutes. And then lap 2 is going to be like a 30-second thing, which is him turning around.
Okay.
And then the next one, so it's kind of like
indicator.
1 and 3 will be a pair. And then, if you mess one up and you have to start over or something, you need to make a mental note of that. But in general, it kind of follows a pattern that you can.
Okay.
Okay, so I keep this worksheet where I put, here's the fit file. This is the date. You can see this is the day before Athlone 2018, okay? And I marked down the runs 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the air density 1.155 3 times and 1.156 for the last one. The temperature is 81 for all of them. I use 0.0035 for course of speeds, and then it's temperature adjusted. So this makes it a little faster. It's 0.003154 is what I calculated. My weight was 197. And then these are the CDAs I calculated. I'll show you how to do that. And these are, I was testing this Velotech suit against this other suit, okay? And what I found is that the Velotech suit was faster by a few watts, and I'll show you that. So, there's a lot of laps, but it turns out the test laps start here at 8, and you can kind of see that because the length is exactly the same. Here, this is another lap here, out and back, out and back, out and back, right? So those are my 4. So if I want to just measure the CDA from those laps, I just click on them. So like the first run is laps 8 and 10. 9 is the turnaround, okay? You can see there was a lot of wind. So if I just did one direction, I get 0.26 and the other direction 0.15, and that's not right. You have to take both directions into account, and the calculator basically can figure out how much wind there is and basically offset it, okay, by doing the out and back. That's what you're doing with the out and back. It will also offset any elevation change. So if your course is not completely flat and you end up higher or lower than you started, that's fine, because it'll get it exactly opposite on the way back. Okay, so it's the computed CDA is 0.198, as you can see for this first run. Okay, and if I do, you can, by the way, you can do multiple, you can have it calculate for multiple runs at once, but if I do the second run, which is laps 12 and 14, it's 204. So you can see the second skin suit was a little slower. And then I did the second skin suit for a second run, which was 16 and 18. And it was 202. And then I went back to the first skin suit. This is a good way to do, because skin suit's a pain to change. And it's 0.199. So the third decimal place you can read as approximately the number of watts saved. So basically the difference between 0.199, it was 0.198, 0.199 for one skin suit and 0.202 and 204 for the other. The difference between those is about 4 watts, or like say 2.203 to 0.199. Does everybody get that? So 4 watts is about a half second per kilometer. So in a 40K race, which that was, that's 20 seconds. So I used the first skin suit, which was my old skin suit. Unfortunately, the new skin suit was slower. So there you go. Yes.
Say one thing. When you're testing, like Lanier mentioned, like it will account for wind, but the calmer the time or the day, it does make a difference.
Yeah.
Like it does account for some wind, but if it's a really gusty, like it's Kenyatta in the evening and the wind's just kind of howling, you do get funky numbers. So it's important,
Yeah.
like you choosing a calm day.
And cars. So wind in cars can like if the wind's gusting around, it can cause too much noise, basically.
Yeah, you
By the
can't.
way, I forgot to mention that you have to put in some parameters here. You have to put in the drivetrain efficiency. It's like 97% for a regular, like a crank-based power meter. I put in the weight, I put in the CRR, and then the air density. And that's, you got to put those in, and then it calculates the number for you. It also draws a graph, but this is showing there's a lot of wind, so this graph isn't very helpful. So does that seem like something you can do, Brian?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm capable. I just need the head start. I need like the hold my hand across the street, and then I'll
So
be able to.
we're looking for like relative numbers, right? Because
Yeah.
we're assuming drivetrain efficiency, we're assuming CRR for the most part.
Yeah.
We're not like worried about the absolute number. We're just looking for improvement.
Keep it the same.
Yeah, like if you use the same thing all the time, it's going to be comparable across days as well. If you
Right,
change
right.
your tires, you're going to get a change.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, if you don't have an air density meter and you have to, you can also calculate it from the temperature, the barometric pressure, and the humidity and the elevation.
But like don't Brian, don't go out like with a non-freshly lubed drivetrain on one day and a freshly lubed drivetrain on the other, like on another run.
Me? You mean I wouldn't do that?
Keep everything
I would
as
hope-
consistent as
I
possible.
would hope your TT bike was always pretty, in
Yeah.
good shape. But
I've learned how to wax my chain.
Great.
So I just need it. Now I'm considering getting a new drivetrain with the crank length, because position is a big thing I want to try to focus on too.
Yeah.
And I'll get you data and then you can help me.
Okay.
Everything?
I mean, that's pretty much all we have to say. I don't know if you saw on the worksheet, but we document every last thing. Like I even put I shaved my legs 3 days before. And then we A/B test one thing at a time. So in that example, I was doing skin suit. And I guess I thought I changed this, but I didn't. Okay, whatever. I would suggest as a place to start, don't change anything on your bike. Just change the way you hold your body. And the first thing I would do is push your head down as far as you can. Your head in, hold down toward the road. That for most people will make you 5 to 10 watts faster without too much cost in terms of you can find a comfortable way to do that. It's immediately going to make you faster. And just seeing that in the testing is kind of eye-opening. So that's what I would suggest. What do you have?
Close
Yeah.
the hole by pulling your head.
Yeah.
You kind of pull up with your hands and down with your head.
Put
Yeah,
your
I do
arms
that a
as
lot.
close together as possible
Yeah.
and try to look like Leah.
Then you have the flat back. Well, I have a flat
Yeah.
back. You have a rounded
Okay.
back, so maybe not.
If you can get a flat back, that's good. I can't do it. So
I can't do it either.
Did you find yourself analyzing the results while you're there and in between runs, or did you take it home to do it?
It depends. If he came with me, sometimes he'd sit in the car and have his laptop, and I would do a couple runs, and
Yeah.
we would just pull over and upload real fast and do it. If I needed kind of more immediate feedback, but often I would just go out, collect my data, come back home and upload it and calculate it. So either one works.
Cool. And it sounded like it was about 3 miles per run. Did you find that something you were doing was too short to get good data, or too long even?
So if you want to measure the effect of a few watts, on that skin suit test, in 3 miles, the difference of that is going to be in the matter of 10 or 20 feet. So it's just, if you do shorter than that, it's just too noisy. And one of the issues, by the way, is when you hit lap on your Garmin, it doesn't record it. It records it to the nearest second as opposed to right that second. And so there's a bit of noise in that, which is kind of annoying. I wish Garmin's all the protocol for the head units, but who else has a need for that precision in their head unit, right? So, yeah. So, but the cool thing is this is really easy, and Leah's done it all over the world. I mean, we did this on the bike path in Rome, downtown Rome.
Yeah.
We've done it in everywhere, wherever she was racing, we did it. So, in every country, there's always a place you can find that works. So.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, it's really small things. Like Lanier said, it's 10, 20 feet of difference. And by just doing it over and over, you'll develop a routine that you repeat over and over again. And it's how you do it. Like when Lanier presses the start lap button, he's fully an Aero versus I'm half an Aero, I press it, but it's the same every time for me. So it's just you develop your routine and you need to stay consistent and remember what that routine is, and you get better the more you do it. The first couple times you test, it's going to be noisy and you're not going to get good data. So don't make any crazy changes based on your first few times testing.
You'll mess it up at first. Leah's super good at it now. I mean, it's
But I wasn't
really
when we
precise
started.
all the time.
Yeah.
Go for it, Brian.
Any tips for mental while you're doing an effort, like you're doing a race? Any sort of mental tips to hold your position, to harken back? Because sometimes I'll sing to myself or whatever to kind of or count. Anything? I just trying to get more help to how can you hold this position?
For me, it was really coming up with those keywords. Okay, I guess it's a couple things. One is if you do the pacing worksheet, that kind of gave me a narrative of what I could be telling myself in my head, right? Like on this hill, I'm going to go a little harder, or okay, there's a downhill here, I need to stay aero. I was like constantly just talking to myself in my head about what I'm doing and what's coming next. And then on, like, if it's a long, boring time trial, like you just go out for 20 minutes and turn around and whatever, like it is really hard to keep that mental focus. But those kinds of things, then it's me still talking to myself, but like chin to hands, like, and then whatever those phrases are for you, but then also keeping a positive dialogue going. Like, what was the race that I did when my saddle was too low and I thought I was the long, straight, flat
Was it
one,
Athlone?
NorCal? It might have
Yeah.
been Athlone.
Did Athlone one year.
And my saddle was like too low, and like 5 minutes in, I was like, oh my gosh, my legs are burning and this is horrible. And I was like this close to just getting off my bike and just sitting on the side of the road. Like, but like often that isn't the problem, and you might not be having the best day, but you really just don't know how you're doing compared to everybody else. And so reminding yourself like everybody's suffering too, and like, I don't know, just like as
So we all
best you
question
can.
our existence, because that's what I do.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
like, why am I
Everybody's
doing
like,
this again?
exactly.
But I hold my position.
I would
So,
add one thing, which is if you adjust your position enough, like Leah did, you can get it so that you fall into a like the
Mhm.
comfortable position you fall into is very aero.
Yeah.
So the time when you have to really concentrate and like on holding it, it's probably messed up a bit. So,
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
where I want to be. It's that mental, like, because I can hold my position. I can stay in the one position. I did that at Athlone.
Yeah.
All the way out and then turned around, and I can hold that position. But can I be better at doing that? So that's why I'm going to be testing and doing my goals.
Like if you look at, I think right now, like if you look at Leah's time, so right after her nationals TT, the men went on the same course, and the men are putting out, I mean, they're putting out like 400 plus watts on that course, and Leah was faster than all but 10 of them, right? And there's guys like we all know locals, like Giovanni Stefani was there, and that guy's he's a monster in power, and Leah blew him away, right? And it's basically, you know, working on this, you're in that category, Brian. You're a monster power, but you like your position's so inefficient.
No, it's been many years, Lanier. I apologize. Many years of inefficiency.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be that hard to fix it. So it's actually comfortable, and very fast. You fall into it. Like Leah falls into her position and she just like can relax.
Yeah.
And it's very fast. So
Yeah. And that's why like you really do have to find a position that is at least mostly comfortable for you. For sure.
Thank you both. Unless there's more.
So go out and everybody kick butt in the time trial.
Yeah, that's amazing, guys. So we had originally scheduled to do Saturday testing, and then we're going to unschedule Saturday testing because the rain was coming, and then it seems like Saturday is going to be nice. So as evidenced by this presentation, you guys can do your own runs wherever. However, if we want to do a Saturday morning little testing session as a group or everyone out there, just reply to the event schedule that you want to go to that, so we know who's going and who's not and so forth, so that if you want to have someone to go, you know, ride stuff with, again, it's not a workout, it's just an aerodynamics testing period. At the same time, as Lanier said, and I think interesting, you know, to see some of the differences, even on a road position, if you're not in full time trial mode, you know, we're looking for those things that get us to the finish line, and there's so much to be gained from little stuff, even in road position. So
like when you're like solo going to the finish of a race and you feel like shit and you're like just trying to eke that extra 5 watts out of yourself, you tend to break aero a bit, you know, even in a road race. And if you've ever tested it and seen what difference it makes, you won't do it. You're much rather hold the aero position and do 20 watts less. Like it is huge. So
I'm into that. But I had actually one more question. what is not worth testing that you've found? Like, or test everything.
Worth testing.
I mean, I think like there's things like at the beginning that aren't worth testing, you know, like you're looking like we had talked about for that low hanging fruit, like those big gains because you're so not optimized.
Yeah.
But once you're optimized, then you can do like really small things like, I don't know, your skewer.
Like the valve cover on your back wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're totally dialed in and you're like, I'm going to test the back wheel cover.
So for you, Brian, there's probably like 30 or 40 watts in just your body position
Oh,
without
totally.
touching any equipment at all. So
Yeah, my question is like, don't go out and do this, Brian. Go just do the main
Well, just
stuff.
do all the big stuff. Yeah.
Get
like
the big
do body
chunks done.
position,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main thing is like,
Body position, skin suit, helmet.
yeah, Lanier said it to me a long time ago.
but there's a lot of skin suits these days that are good, especially if you have that base layer. And then
I have the Velotech one because we got it,
yeah,
but I have the new Castelli one coming.
okay. I don't know that old Velotech with the base layer under it is really fast. So
I don't have the one with the base layer, I don't think.
no, you buy the base layer separate. That's the thing we were talking
The
about.
no pins one.
Yeah, or the hoop one is I'm sure fine too. There's probably a bunch of them now.
So
We
the
should
base
look around.
layer
If
is,
anybody finds a cheap one, let us know. So
so what is the benefit of the base layer?
It creates a boundary
It
layer.
creates the ripples.
around-
It creates the ripples and
Yeah,
stuff.
it creates
in a way that
grips.
would be illegal to do in the skin suit itself.
It makes you a golf ball.
The skin suit,
More or
it's
less,
illegal
yeah.
to do that in the skin suit material. They made that illegal. But
But
people
they're-
figured out you could put a base layer underneath the skin
Okay.
suit that does the same thing.
They all work in a very narrow range of speeds. So like there's a different one for track speeds and there's one for time trial speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt, I had that last question.
That's okay, man. It's all
Well, and so
fascinating
what
stuff
is-
and
what
so many
is-
opportunities.
I have just what is the name of that device for measuring the air density?
Let me just show you really quick something. You can also go to let's see.
It's called Kestrel while he looks it up. KESTRE.
TREL.
Yep.
If you go to the Wonder Map, like here's Kenyatta Road. This is you can just do this for anywhere.
Right.
This thing died. The website crashes sometimes. Okay, so if you go to the Wonder Map and then here's Kenyatta Road and just pick like a weather station that's close. Okay, so here's Edgewood Park. And then if you go down to where it lists the day and you hit table, and you can get this for any day, even in history, and you can go by time, like when you were testing.
Ah.
So if you were testing at like 8 a.m. or something, here's the temperature, and this is like dew point humidity. So what you would need is temperature, you need humidity, and you need the barometric pressure, so the 30.27.
And is there an online calculator where I can look up what the equation is or?
Well, I put that right here. So if you just
okay.
hit calculate air density, you just put in temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, and then the elevation.
Okay.
Kenyatta Road is about 400 feet. And you can see it calculated it there, but I mean, that's 1.178 for 68, 29, 90, and et cetera. So if you don't have the device, you can do it that way.
But the device is probably more accurate because it's
It is. It's also
measured at the actual
expensive.
site where you're operating.
Yeah, I have two, and I lend one of them out. Right now, somebody has it, the other one, but I'm actually happy to lend this one out too, because we're not doing any testing right now. We're both kind of out of commission. So,
Well, I'm doing a gravel race. I'm in my gravel racing
Yeah.
mode right now, so it probably doesn't matter until later in the year. But
if people want to borrow it later in the year,
Well, and we may be able to put one in like as a team purchase that's available too.
Hey,
$400.
Aero matters in grapple because you're very likely not.
in my age group, the only thing that matters is getting to it. When you're 65, it just matters if you get to the end.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, I'd love to see or hear some feedback on you guys' testing over the the next however long. But I think it's important to note that it really is a process too, right? So start with your position, all that stuff. Great advice, and thank you, Leah and Lanier. That was Awesome. That was really fascinating.
Yeah.
I have
Feel free
another
to
one.
Contact us if you have any questions.
Yep, Brian has a question.
Brian?
Tell us if you're cut off after this one, though.
Yeah, all right. Should a bike fit like a current bike fit, or doesn't matter?
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't like bike fits is great if you've never had it, but ultimately you're going to be changing your position a bit. We can help you with that. I know you live
Okay.
far away, but
I'll come over. I'll come over and
yeah,
figure
you
it
can
out.
come over. We fit people in our garage, and
Okay.
we can help with that.
So the thing is too, I offer this up too, is I have the Leomo thing, which I've been using, which tracks body position as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So it's like sensors that go on your legs and your pelvis.
I see.
I
Yeah,
kickstart.
it's
I'll show.
interesting stuff. It's evolved a lot since it first came out too.
And so you can do an indoor sort of position that could potentially whatever. And you can do it out on live road,
Okay.
and you can like see your shrugged shoulders. It's whatever. I'm done. Pick this up next time.
Cool. The way we do it is like you try something that feels a certain way. Like I'm going to shrug. And that's what it feels like to me as I'm shrugging, and I measure it. And if it's faster, then I want to try and remember, I write down shrug,
And what did I do? Like
Yeah.
I squeeze my shoulders close to my ears. Like, I don't know, you write as many things down so that you can remember it. And then ideally you do it before you forget.
Yeah.
But what's cool about time trialing is like, obviously the stronger you are, the fitter you are, you can be fast, but all of these things really matter too. And lots of people just don't take the time or pay attention to them. So it's like a fun mixture of brains and strength.
Which is exactly why we wanted to do this for the team, is to give you guys, especially the younger guys, that insight into the possibilities of, what's out there that we haven't thought about, and how you can, just those spreadsheets alone, the depth of preparation is impressive. And, to see that world tour level insight was really great. Thank you.
It used to be my only advantage, and now people are catching on.
I know.
I know, it's the
People
same in the
always catch
Peloton.
up. Yeah. We had a whole bunch of secrets that, now everybody's doing. It's really annoying. So,
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, guys. I'll keep an eye on the stuff for Saturday, and if we have some scheduled stuff, it's
Yeah.
super handy that you guys can test on your own and do multiple runs and just upload the data. I think that's great. But it's also fun to do groupthink. I'll post some stuff on Spawn about, other options, maybe a Saturday ride in lieu of testing for some. Anyway,
okay.
thanks again,
Now,
guys.
can you post the presentation so people have the link to the app?
I will.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll put
Link to
the
app. Put that in the email body.
yeah, I'll put the video up. I'm gonna pause recording actually, and the text stuff. It's okay to share those URLs,
The what?
The
the
URL.
URL stuff on the testing protocol.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We don't need it anymore.
I'm going to make it better. I have an idea for making it better. Like, so it estimates the CRR at the same time. That's kind of hard, but I had an idea how to do it. Like I know how to do it, but it turns out that it requires a lot of data, but I have a better idea. So
Oh, Lanier.
stick it in. So
So
Yeah,
as
he's
you
done,
guys probably can guess, Lanier's was modest in his own proclamations of greatness. Lanier brings a lot to the table for the team and for society in general. So thanks,
Good
man.
job.
thanks, Matt.
It's-
I got not a question. A Lanier story. A Lanier
Wait, I thought
story.
you were cut off. All right.
I know.
Last
Lanier
word.
story.
Awesome.
So Chico, whatever, 2017 is like first time I ever had a time trial bike. I just bought it off my buddy who did triathlons, and I did it. I went really hard and I felt really good. Came back. Lanier's like, "Oh, what's your time?" And whatever. I told him, he's like, "Oh, you left it on a lot on the course." That has stuck with me since. I know
That
Lanier's
cold
in my head.
realism, like, yeah, that's
He's
good.
like, "Oh,
all
you
right.
left it," and so I never, as terrible Aero as I am, I always go as hard as I can because of Lanier.
Nice.
Brian, I have a secret. Just get some Giro Empires. Get some lace-up shoes.
Really impressed.
I'm looking at getting better. So
What's super funny is one Chico GC winner telling another Chico GC winner that he's not.
well, that
Aero.
came from that because
I
Lanier
know,
was like,
well,
"Dude, go!"
I
And
mean, it's
I went
the
and
GT, right?
I figure you
rode the
lost.
course, pre-rode the course, tried to get better. So yes.
Well, he
Yeah.
missed
Brian,
his
your
start
position looks
time,
like
so-
shit.
Oh yeah, my head was way up. I looked like a triathlon, and I still won the time trial. So just imagine what
Nice.
I can gain still.
Well, it's nice when you have like what 390 watts.
I know.
Right, power helps.
But
Yeah.
but Brian, we could make you like a national champion level if you just, you know.
I know. That's my goal.
Focus,
That's my goal.
that's
Linear,
not a
that's
small-
secretly my goal.
Okay.
That's
That's
not a
always been my goal
small
since you've said it,
proposition,
so.
man. And right in line with the club. I mean, that'd be your perfect next step, Callison.
Yeah.
Nationals, Masters, Nationals is coming.
I just need you to be off the front in the races so I can sit in.
Right.
I'm getting ready.
Well, we
Ready.
got Charlie and Keegan coming your way quick, and Leo too. So you guys might have some resources and some opportunities shortly in the P123s. The 123 stuff, it sounds great if people are going to do it this weekend. By the way, sorry, off on a tangent. I'm going to stop this recording, which doesn't stop the thing, but.